Hi there, and welcome to another great episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. We've got another great episode today. I got a hold of our longtime unofficial co-host, Roy Huntington, and we had a nice chat about something that it might upset one or two people, but we're going to say it anyway, and that is, quit hanging so much crap off of and inside of your gun. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but first, let's hear a quick word from our great sponsor, 4 Patriots. Prepare for those just-in-case situations with delicious and long-lasting emergency food kits from 4 Patriots. These survival meals will give your family the energy they need to get through any emergency. Their survival food kits are a great combination of taste and shelf life, making them perfect for any situation. And as a special offer to the Guns Magazine podcast audience, if you go to 4patriots.com/gunmag, you'll get weekly special deals and discounts. That's 4patriots.com/gunmag. Well, good Friday morning, Roy Huntington. Well, it's not Good Friday, but it's a good Friday morning.
Boy, I wouldn't know. Since I retired, I have no idea what day of the week it is.
Well, it's definitely Friday. We're banging another Guns Magazine podcast out. And if you notice that it sounds a little more nasally than normal, I don't think either one of us are 100%. So we're going to call this the mucus abundant episode. So the nice thing about when doing video with the cuts is if I need to blow my nose, I can always cut over to Roy and I can do whatever I need to do and let him go after it. But
unless we're both blowing our nose at the same time, it's like what?
That could make for a good outtake reel if we've, I won't get too descriptive, but no. We've all been there, done that. So anyway, apologies from the nasal section here. But no, we just got back from SHOT Show a week ago, and I think I've got SHOT Show crud like most of our team. And there's just a lot of it going around. I think everybody in the country is sick at this point. But we decided let's do a podcast episode kind of inspired by some of the stuff that I saw at SHOT Show of certain manufacturers always bring out some stuff that you're not really sure if it's intentionally comical or if they're really going after the, that's really cool. I need a gun with 17 magazines and 4 laser designators and all that. And so we've seen a couple of this. We, all of us on FMG were passing that around the last couple of days, and Roy did a little Photoshop that put a cappuccino machine on the pick rail, and that's exactly what the gun in question needed. But today we're going to talk about just that whole idea of something I've written about before, which is stop hanging so much crap off of your gun. And as Roy was just saying right before I hit record, I guess maybe that's a time and grade thing. The more you do in real world, the more you realize every bit of gunk you hang off of your gun or put into your gun is just another failure point. So I've talked long enough, Roy. I need to soothe my throat. What do you think about people hanging with too much stuff?
And I don't know if it comes with old age or what the deal is. But, I remember when I was 20 years old and, just a really young baby cop and stuff, you do chase every new widget, every new cool thing, every new cool flashlight, and I think it's okay because you just don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how you get to where you know better, is you have to do that. But I think you should reach a certain point in your life, and although I think with many people they never reach this point, to where you look at some of these monstrosities. I mean, some of these guns that I saw that were announced at SHOT Show, I honestly wasn't sure if they were sort of AI conception.
Yeah.
Remember they used to do a 3D CAD cam, 3D cartoony looking gun, hey, this is going to be our new something.
The future.
But it was pretty obvious. It's like, it was kind of blocky. It was not the right colors. It was something that was, CAD cam or something. But with this new stuff with AI, you really can't tell. I mean, you can blow it up, you can look at it, and it's got all the right marks, and everything looks exactly the way it would look in the real world. And so I just assumed that silly gun that we were looking at was like a joke. You know, I know, and it wasn't a joke.
Well, with the cappuccino machine on it, it made it perfect. But, I was just sitting here thinking as you were talking that we've come full circle. As young officers, I did the exact same thing, just every little whiz bang Gidget and Gazmo. Boy, I messed that up. Gadget and Gizmo. Wow. It's going to be a long episode. I did all that, anything I could afford, and, the cool knew this, that, and the other. And then you kind of get to the point where you realize, again, failure points, and just go with what you need for your mission, nothing else. Don't worry about looking cool. And now doing what we do, we've kind of gone full circle. We always have that kind of stuff around. And I always find myself going, if I just went back to the basics, A, B, and C, that's what I carry in my day-to-day life as a CCW, civilian kind of guy. But it is funny, and I don't want to seem like we're talking down to folks, but we're trying to give the benefit of our experience of just failure points. That to me is the concept here, failure points.
Well, if you look at for instance, in the soldiers who have been overseas in the sandbox, unless their job is specific, it's like we are going out at nighttime and we are ambushing people and stuff like that. We know then, okay, their little short M4 AR something has probably got a dot, it's probably got 2 lights, maybe infrared, projector, probably has night vision, and so they're pretty cluttered up. They're pretty heavy, looking things, but all of those things have a specific role, and I understand that. But if you look at the average schmo who's toting his rifle around out there, he's got a light on the front and some kind of a red dot sight, and then the gun is done. I see some foregrip sometimes, and it's like all my personal protection style guns are all iron sights. And the ones that can have a light, I usually have 1 light and sometimes 2 lights on it. And so, I did that cycle from the early days of ARs where you get this and you put a scope on it, you do, lasers and, fancy stocks and multiple sling attachment points and all that kind of stuff. And then, but when I actually tried to carry one around one day, I realize it pokes you everywhere. The slings all get tangled up in things, Yeah. And you bang the optics on stuff trying to get out of the truck. And so my defensive AR here is a 16-inch pencil barrel flat top with iron sights. Mm-hmm. And I've got 2 lights on the end of it, and it's got a fixed military-style buttstock. Yeah. Because I had an experience one time where I went to shoulder one and the buttstock collapsed. You could still shoot, but it was just that for that moment you weren't engaged with what was going on. Yeah. You were like, "What the hell?" So.
I had a similar experience. I was going to share that. I at some point got one of these super slings that, it's a 17 point with extra bells and whistles. And, I think it had some kind of chaff dispenser or something on it. And we had a situation on duty that I jumped out, went to grab my gun, and I swear, and this is a training failure, I will admit, but I couldn't think how to get the damn sling on, for 30, it seemed like forever, probably 30 seconds, but it's like, oh, does the arm go? No, and that's when I realized a single point sling, either a basic sling or what I use is the short elastic ones, because it's pretty simple. You put it over your neck and your gun's slung. But that was a classic example of that sling was probably better because it could do multiple positions and bracing this, that, and the other, and blah, blah. It did 52 things. It was like a Swiss Army knife of slings, but in the heat of the moment, when things were going a little bit crazy, I couldn't remember how to use the damn thing. So,
well, that's the point too. In the heat of the moment, because I have handed people 1911, and they say, "Oh yeah, I know how to shoot a 1911." It's like, okay, here, right? And you see them for a heartbeat or so. They're like going, take the safety off, and then and so, like you say, it was a training issue. unless you're really going to be doing it all the time and training constantly. I mean, I pick up, like a red dot optic that I have on a 22 Plinker, and I have to try to remember how to turn it on. you know?
Yep.
So I'm not saying all that stuff is bad, and there's nothing wrong if you want to have an AR-15 or something and put every single 3D printed widget you can find on it. Go ahead. That's fine. But I don't know that that's probably the best idea if you really want to run the gun as a defensive gun.
Yep.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, what I'm trying to accomplish here, aside from having some fun talking to Roy, is give my benefit of experience of having done so much stuff wrong. And that's where, looking at the reader mail, it's very gratifying that people say that. We try never to talk down to people. We just talk to people. And, for the younger, less experienced shooters, what I'm saying is don't make the same mistakes I have. If you find yourself justifying anything in the shooting world because it's cool, then that tells me that's not the first criteria for something. The really experienced shooter, to me, cool is the guy that can deliver every time, especially under stress. I don't care about all the goodies and the toys that they have, but I got to know that if things go sideways, I can depend on that person to, I guess, saddle up and deliver. And if he's constantly, he or she saying, well, this is cool and this is cool and this is cool. Yes, it's cool, but is that really going to serve you in the real world? So that's my sermon for today is if you're looking at something thinking, oh, that'd be really cool to hang off of my gun. Maybe, but if you want to really earn the respect of your fellow shooters and especially the older guys, just use what works. Don't worry about accessorizing.
Well, buy a video game, if you know what I mean. And I think a lot of this, it comes from that. And you see it at a gun show, for instance, is that you'll see young people, up into their 20s, 30s, whatever. They're walking down and there's some kitted up AR platform or something. And you see them and it's always like, oh man, rad, cool, bitchin', gnarly, It's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. If you want to do that and have some fun with guns like that, that's fine. But you don't need it. I was at a competition one time years ago, and one of the top level shooters, like the Rob Latham, Jerry Michalik kind of name guy. I don't want to say his name just because. And we did a test because I was curious. And so I said, let's all come up and put your guns on this table. All the competitors who were there. And so, there was like a Beretta 92s, fancy gun and 1911s and I think a XD competition and there was just like, I don't know, maybe 10 different style guns here. And this competitor had only fired his own gun of all of them, right? Well, then he proceeded to knock down falling plates faster than I could watch them with my eyes, moving from gun to gun. In other words, he would pick one up, empty the mag, put it down, walk to the next one, pick it up. First time he ever shot that gun, right? Blink, 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 put it down, step over, blink, 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 with very few misses. And so I saw somebody else do one with a high point one time, and it was the same thing. It was a top tier 1, competitor, and they're running plates so fast, and it was unbelievable. I watched Rob Latham hit 5 falling plates from a draw in 2 seconds. That's superhuman. Jerry Michalik's like that. But so somebody handed him a high point 9mm and said, what about this? And so he made it sing. Yeah. It was like blink, 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 loaded it, ran, cleared it, blink, 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 everything's fine. So to me, that really reaffirms that the focus should be on the shooter and the talent, and that's the tactics. Mm-hmm. But a tactical gun isn't. It's just a piece of iron and plastic. Yeah. It's nothing.
It's just a tool. And what's the old saying? A poor craftsman blames his tools. Well, it's the same thing. If I won this competition because I've got my Master Blaster 5000. Well, no, it's not. It's because you practiced, you're skilled, and a little bit of luck. And, obviously better tools can help those at the higher levels. But when you get down to it, just like you said, you give Robbie Latham whatever, a High Point or a Jennings, he's probably going to do better than both of us. Well, that's just the nature.
He's going to run the gun to its ability, and that's the secret. Because so many people think, oh, well, if I have that fully outfitted AR-15, that's going to make me a better shot or make me, have better tactics. I was doing some gunsmithing one time for a friend of mine, and he was here. Well, he was a guy I knew, and so he brought this competition style wide body 1911 with a red dot sight and bells and whistles and rails, and it was so fancy, it was unbelievable, right? So it had some little thing was wrong. I fixed it. So we stepped outside of the garage here. I set up a target at about 12 yards, and I said, go ahead and test it, And so he fired like a dinner plate size group at this distance, and with the red dot sight, with a gun that probably had a 3-pound trigger pull. And he said, wow, it shoots really good. And see, I was concerned because I thought, did I just mess something up in that gun? And I said, well, can I see that one time? And I'm not saying I'm Rob Latham or anything, but at 12 or 15 yards, you could shoot like a $50 with a gun like that if you take your time, and so I did, right? Well, he was flabbergasted because he just went, and I said, and so then I had a iron-sighted 1911 on the bench, and I got that, and I said, it's really not the gun. And so I kind of duplicated it with the iron-sighted. Well, he was just absolutely amazed. And so I think he learned a real lesson there, because over the next half hour, I taught him trigger squeeze, proper sight picture, breathing a little bit. And pretty soon I had him shooting, teacup-sized group at the same, but I mean, talk about a classic thing. He bought all of this technology thinking that was going to make him a better shooter. And actually, the scary thing was that he thought he was a better shooter.
No.
Well,
bless your heart.
I know.
Years ago, and this totally reinforced, or maybe this is where I first realized it. And I'll tell a story about the late, great Louis Arbuck. And Louis was, even most of the really great instructors agree he was probably one of the best diagnosticians of shooters, and he could fix anybody and very quickly. But we would bring him here every year for two weeks, and we had a lot of training. And I remember there was a guy that, let's call him Bill for sake of argument. And Bill put every kind of gadget in and on his guns. And we were on a break, and he was having all kinds of trouble with his gun. And so Louis put the gun on the bench and started going, well, I don't know what this is, and I've never seen one of these, and why did you put that on there? And he turned and he goes, what did I say, Bill? Bill's gun is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And he took all that crap off this gun, and wow, the gun ran. Huh? Who'd have thought? And it was so funny in Louis' laconic, dry sense of humor that he quoted Forrest Gump. And but it was the perfect moment of quit putting crap in and on your gun. And I forget, he had recoil buffers and special springs and bushings and blah blah blah, and the gun didn't run. Well, what's the point of having a gun? You basically got a rock at that point. So Bill was chagrined, but he quit coming to schools with all this crap in and on his guns. So.
Well, I think that's a really good lesson, too. And I can see where Louis would be just the guy to do that, is that, but people say they go to the store, they buy a gun. Then without even shooting it, they buy a trigger kit for it. Then they buy a recoil spring kit for it. Then they buy a new plate for the back of it. Then they, and it's like, I know it's hard to believe, but most of the guns, and you will understand this immediately, most of the guns that are manufactured today are actually put together by a team of engineers and manufactured on CNC machines, and everything is engineered to work together. So when there's a pin that's a certain diameter, it's because it has to be that diameter. If there's a spring of a certain poundage, it's because that's what works in this application. And so, yes, sometimes you can improve those things with a trigger kit or something like that. But I mean, I don't think I can think of a time that a new gun I got to test from any manufacturer did work pretty much fine out of the box. I bet you'll feel the same way. And so I think people just need to refocus and reset that button and start and learn the basics and learn how to operate your gun. And then your analogy with tools are perfect. As your skills improve, then you add products and equipment that will help you to enhance your skills further. Yep. I mean, when I first started woodworking, I had a $99 old Craftsman contractor table saw, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then as I worked and my skills got better, I realized, I need a better saw to do the things that I want to do, and then you keep adding to the tools and, I need a planer now and I need but you don't go out on the first day and buy all that stuff. And so that's why I see these people they go and I'll take one of these and one of these and one of these and one of these. And then pretty much every widget you have possible is now hanging on the rifle.
Yep.
And you're right. It probably doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, we had a buddy that he's gone on to the great hunting ground now, but he was notorious for that. If we decided, back in the day, hey, we're going to start pheasant hunting. So we're all trying to buy a pheasant gun and buy dogs and all this stuff. He would go out and buy top of the line stuff, whether it was guns or dogs or fishing gear or boats or whatever. And then when it didn't do what he thought it should do, he would end up, this thing's a piece of junk. I'll just give it away. Well, I'll give you $300 for that new Browning over under. Yeah, that's fine. It was quite nice. Whenever he got into something new, because you knew he would go through 3 or 4 iterations until he finally either just gave up or found whatever suited him. But he would buy top of the line stuff and it just wouldn't do it. And he never comprehended that it wasn't the gun. It was the loose nut behind the gun. And, that worked out good for many of his friends.
When I was a cop in traffic division, there was a guy and we had a nickname for him, and it was like Tech, or something like that. But this was the early days. There weren't really laptop computers or anything, but any new electronic widget that came out, he would buy, and it didn't matter what it was. He had his own portable radio that he bought, rather than our old beat up brick, Motorola's or whatever they were, and I remember somebody came out with this funny little laptop-y, computery looking thing, and it basically printed with those electric label printers that they have nowadays. You type it in, there's a little LED screen, and then you hit print and it prints that thing out. Well, this thing printed like that. So it was really inefficient. But he would spend hours getting set up at a accident scene with, using a laser pointer and doing this and infrared this and all that. And meanwhile, we would show up with a roll of tape and a pencil and a pad, and conduct the investigation and be off having lunch, while he was still messing around with all this stuff. And I think there's a lot to that. I mean, I argue with myself on it. There's nothing wrong if you like to do this.
Right.
In other words, if you want to play with this stuff, go play with this. And buy every single widget you can find and screw it on your gun if you want to. It's good for the industry. You're going to learn, if you please, at least if you do learn from it. But don't think that is going to solve your problems. I think that's what you and I wanted to talk about mostly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think it goes along with, I was sitting here pondering stuff as you were talking, and when I'm talking to a newer or less experienced shooter, I always somehow get around to, the old sayings have a big grain of truth in them. That's why they're old sayings and they're still around. But one that I picked up years ago, and I still believe it with all my heart, and I believe it more now, is beware of the man with one gun, because he probably knows how to use it. Now, there are many exceptions to that. But if you get a guy, and I think of a friend of mine who he wears bib overalls all the time and a seed cap, and he's got cattle and all that. And if you didn't know his backstory, he just seems like a farmerly type guy. But and it's not Roy Huntington. But I think Roy would probably fit in this category too. But my buddy looks completely unassuming, but he has literally been there, done that, burned countless T-shirts and been burned. And he's quite the person, but the appearances don't match up. And it's always funny when you introduce him to somebody new that's kind of a tactical guy, and they look at him like, what's this guy going to teach me? What does he know about anything? And they quickly get schooled. And it goes back to, again, if you want all the toys and the gizwiz stuff, great, knock yourself out. It helps our advertisers at Guns Magazine. But when you get down to actually using it, whether it's competition, hunting, self-defense, be a lot more thoughtful. Just like one gun.
Yeah. I mean, think about this for a minute. And I know what you're going to say, is if we get a reader who's never owned a gun before and they say, I want to buy a gun for home defense, I really don't know anything about guns, what would you tell them to probably go buy?
One of the major brands, if they're talking a pistol, a Mossberg, a Smith & Wesson, a Springfield, not a Kimber, not a Nighthawk, not something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't say, go get a high cap, wide body 1911 with a red dot sight and I tell them, see if you have a friend who has a 4-inch fixed sight 38 special revolver that they want to sell.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't want to hear that because, they've been playing video games or they've watched, the Reacher on TV and John Wick and all that kind of stuff. And,
but I want to be able to flip it in the air and put the magazine in and then do a spin. Really? Are you capable of doing a headstand, let alone while shooting?
I remember one time, a million years ago, after Clint Smith opened up Thunder Ranch in Texas, and I was attending one of the really early classes there, and it was just a basic handgun class. It was like I think it was a 5-day class. And so there was a real broad cross-section of people there on the line. And most of them were novice shooters, but I think some of them thought they were a lot more seasoned than they really were. Yeah. And the people who had their wits about them, we were there to learn. So it's like you listen, you're quiet, you do what he says, you don't argue. Even if you're the best ever at what they're telling you to do right now, you still do it and you still try hard and you still, that's how you do it. Well, we were like noon on the first day and this guy, I was talking with Clint and there's somebody else was there, and this guy comes up on the gravel, crunch, and he was fidgety and stuff like that. It ends up he was a Arthur Murray dance instructor, believe it or not. I didn't know that there really was such a thing in the real world, but there is, and he was one. So he's kind of real fidgety, and then finally he was waiting for Clint to sort of stop telling us what he was telling about, and Clint said, yeah, what do you need? And he said, when are we going to do where we run and then we kick doors in and, and engage multiple targets and all that kind of, like the really cool, SWAT stuff.
Yeah.
I swear to you, he really said it just like this. And I remember, Clint just looked at him. He looked at us. He looked back. And I remember he goes, I'll make you a deal. Let's just concentrate on learning not to shoot yourself in the foot today, okay? and so the guy goes, oh, okay. And crunch, back where he was. And
wow.
I know. And he had Wait, he had a Taurus semi-auto in the days when that wasn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Nowadays it's completely different, but in those days it was like, really?
Well, that's when I get to use my favorite line, and I use this a lot anymore. Slow down, Speed Racer. Slow down.
Slow down. So, I mean, if we had to sum it up, I'm not sure how you'll sum it up, but what I say is start with the basics. And as you say, if you go slow, you'll get smooth. And the smoother you get, that means you'll get faster, right? But you don't buy everything. You don't buy an Indy racer to learn how to drive.
Yep.
First of all, you'll kill yourself, and the second of all is that you don't know what it can do, so you don't even know how to use the tools.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and so I mean, one of my favorite guns here is a gun you and I have shot off my back patio, and it's that little single shot 32 H&R Magnum that I built from nothing. I don't think it can possibly get any more bare bones than that. Iron sight, single shot, 32 Magnum with a hammer.
Yeah.
And I mean, it only has the basic parts you need to make a gun actually shoot, right?
Yep.
I shoot it all the time. I love it. It's great fun. It's a bit like Beware the Guy with One Gun, because I could shoot it. It shoots everything I aim at. And, it's always there. It's easy to carry. But the thing about it, though, is that when I show it to people, a lot of them look and they go, well, what's this good for? It's like, you could put a red dot sight on that if you.
And a suppressor and a foregrip.
And put a single point sling on it. And, and I said, Or I could just have this gun that's going to work, and I have a good time with it. And, I don't know. Maybe we are FUDs.
We are. I'm proudly wearing that title now. So, but truly, if you've reached a certain time and grade, or so many years on this earth, and you've been doing it a while, there's some lessons you've learned. And going back to my younger days, I always did appreciate the old guys, and I tried to learn from them. But now that I've gotten there myself, I wish I had picked up even more, because why reinvent the wheel, So,
and as Clint said, let's just concentrate on not shooting ourselves in the foot today.
Exactly.
I mean, really. And maybe we're beating this into the dirt, but I'm just going to go out and say, buy as much stuff as you want to. Make sure you can still pay the rent first, of course.
Yeah.
And have fun with it. Learn about it. Experiment with it. Understand the technology and all that kind of stuff. But don't buy all this stuff thinking it's going to make you a better shot, or that your tactics will be better. Because I'll tell you what, you give a guy, who really, like your old friend, the seed hat wearer guy, give him a single shot 32 H&R Magnum and a problem,
he'll solve it.
And I'll bet you he's going to solve it.
Exactly.
And so be that guy. And then now, if having two flashlights works into whatever it is you're trying to do, and you understand what it can do and their capabilities and all that kind of stuff, well, then you add that to your toolbox. I learned something not too long ago, that somebody sent me a 1500 lumen light, which will burn your retina out, I think, right? And so I thought, wow, well, this is going to be a perfect next to the bed light, because you're going to light up your whole house through the walls, probably. And so then at nighttime, I said, okay, well, I'm going to try it out, right? Because we had training before, so, you should at least kind of train with it, see how it feels. Does the switch work and all that? Well, I turned that thing on at nighttime, and it completely blinded me. I could not see anything, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized, well, no, actually, the 350 lumen light works better in the pitch black in your house.
That's
and
funny.
so But I know there are people who go buy 6 of these and mount them on the end of their AR-15, so.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Well, Roy, we made it through an entire podcast without having any undue excretions. I will say about 10 minutes ago, I had a sneeze that was this close, but I fought through it. So, well, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us today. This has been fun, and hopefully maybe we've offered an opinion or two. We never say that we are the way, but it's one way of doing it. This is our opinion. So hopefully it helped you. And if it didn't, well, leave us a comment and tell us why. So
that's right.
Well, alrighty, Rye. Wow. Maybe I shouldn't put the bourbon in my hot tea. So anyway, Roy, thank you so much, and look forward to next time we talk.
Let's do it.
It's always great to talk to Roy Huntington, and hopefully we gave you a thing or two to think about when you're outfitting your own guns for self-defense. Before we go, I'd like to remind you to check out our great sponsor, 4 Patriots. If you go to 4patriots.com, type in /gunmag. That's where you can see all the special deals and discounts exclusively for the Guns Magazine podcast audience on all your preparedness needs and supplies. That's 4patriots.com /gunmag. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. On behalf of all the hardworking crew here at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, reminding you yet again, now get out there and get shooting.